So we're going to look at some neck exercises, and in particular neck exercises that help connect the head and the neck into the lower sections of the spine. In other words, connecting the neck and the head to the body rather than treating the neck and head as a separate entity. A lot of people, including myself, I really need these types of exercises because I tend to have a little bit of a kink in my neck which goes forward at that large C7 vertebra, which is a very common hinge point for people to bend their neck from, rather than bending it from the base of the skull, which still preserves the connection of the neck right through to the lower sections of the spine. So first of all, to just kick off all neck movements, there are actually two really nice, easy neck exercises which are beautiful for any neck conditions at all, pretty much. So the first one is this one, interlacing our fingers, putting them behind our head, and basically just pressing the head gently back into our palms like this. And the more angles you take your neck through, the more of your neck is going to unlock. So we can bring our head forwards, we can turn it side to side, we can tilt it side to side. So there's rotation, and there's sideways flexion, and there's flexion and extension of the neck as well. So all those basic anatomical directions, but all the time gently pressing back into the palms of our hands like this. Now we can also apply pressure from a different direction, so we can push sideways. Let's get that over the top. And again, as many different positions of the neck, you're freeing up more of the neck. So we can do that to both sides of our head, and then we can push from the front. Now the main one that you're going to stick to probably, unless you have more specific neck issues, is just the pressing back one, which is a lovely way to unlock a lot of neck problems. Now the second one, which I got from the Franklin method, is a sponge squeezing one. Imagining that these two muscles either side of our neck are like a sponge. Now I like to use 3, or actually you could say 6 hand positions for this one. So the first one is just holding on to the middle of those muscles, putting one hand over the other, because that just makes it easier. It makes it more comfortable, and the more comfortable and rested you are, the easier it's going to work. Now, it's prescribed as basically a tilt forwards and back exercise, but you can just twist again like the other exercise. You can turn your head. The more positions, the more parts of your neck are going to let go. Now what I like to do is use 2 other neck positions. I like to go low, so just at the base of the neck, which is tremendously relieving for my C7 hinge point. I love going in lower there. And also how you can sort of double the number of approaches to this exercise is just swap hands. Because if you swap hands, again, you get a different grip and you'll access different parts of your neck. Yeah. So the third neck position is just below the skull, just below the base of the skull. And each of these positions feel different. They'll unlock different parts. And a nice way to finish this one off is to maintain that squeeze and then just use the heels of the hand to just wipe off. And always following any neck exercises or stretches, we must integrate that effect through our whole bodies. So let's start to move the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists and hands, and then start to include the neck. Lovely, good. Okay. So that was working fairly locally for the neck, but with all neck exercises pretty much, you can always incorporate a bit of leverage from the floor. So if you're standing, obviously that leverage is going to come from what your feet are doing in relation to the floor. If you're kneeling, it will be what your knees are doing in relationship with the floor. If you're sitting, it's what your sit bones are doing, basically. So starting off with our first one, I can get more easy leverage pushing my head back by pushing the floor apart with my feet. It's like trying to stretch that carpet apart with my feet. It just derives power from the lower sections of my body, and also it gives me that feeling of that movement in my neck connecting all the way down through to the floor. There's a lot more feeling of safety and power in my neck when I do it like this. Now, the advantage of switching all that off and just doing it locally is that you have to try it yourself, but it's a different feeling. And sometimes it is very pleasant to just switch off and be passive in the rest of your body and just work locally. It's quite sort of light and fluffy and quite relaxing to work that way. But if you really want to engage strongly those connective forces, absolutely try and push the floor apart, and you suddenly feel that neck is no longer just a neck working by itself. You're actually providing leverage with your whole body and using the floor to gain that leverage. So your neck suddenly becomes the whole floor, and to an extent your neck, it becomes connected to the earth. So it's like you're sort of pushing back with the force of your body and the earth. Very connecting for your whole system. The same thing with our sponge one. You can push the floor apart, but this is quite a nice one to just do locally. It's such a soothing one, but you certainly can push the floor apart if you're looking for that connected sensation. Now the next one, which is again based on a Franklin method neck massage, is we use the palms of our hands, put them on the back of our head, and bring our thumbs down either side of those two muscles. So it's just at the base of the skull, and you might find two little hollows in the base of the skull, either side of the two main muscles there. If you get your thumbs into those hollows and just pull in and up into the base of the skull, and let's start to tilt the head forwards and back like that. And now the trick is that what you want to do is gently push back into the thumbs, because that will mean that the pivoting will come not from your C7 vertebra, but from the base of your skull, which is where we really want to train the movement to come from. That's it, good. Now you can bring your thumbs a bit wider if you want to. That also feels quite nice. And again, particularly as you're nodding your head down, you want to be pushing back into those thumbs, which feels quite nice, and also it ensures that that's where you're pivoting from. And again, to come out of this, we tilt our head forwards, press back into our thumbs, and just wipe off. Now, that exercise is a little bit deeper, so it may produce a little bit of a reaction. Certainly test your neck out. And what some people feel is, oh, I feel a little bit more grittiness there. I can feel a few problems there that I didn't feel before, simply because it's released more range of movement. So what you're actually feeling is what's really there, what's always been there all the time, but you've kept your neck so locked up you haven't been aware of it. So anyway, we'll look at what to do to fix that, if that's your problem. We'll look at that at the end of the video, but let's keep moving. So the other two massage-like exercises we can do, one is using the knuckles of our hand here, the large knuckles. So before we do this one, let's just have a practice, and we'll think of our palm as the back of our head, and what we're going to do is just practice massaging that palm with those big knuckles, not these smaller ones here, the big ones. And try doing that with your other hand too, with your less dominant one, because that's going to be harder to do. So make sure you get a bit of familiarity with working with that less dominant hand. And now we're going to apply that to the back of our skull. So we're looking at a strip about 1 inch above the base of the skull and about 1 inch below. We're going to use our big knuckles, and we're just going to wipe down like this. So starting off somewhere near the middle of the back of the skull and just working out towards the ears like this. That's the way. And it doesn't really matter what your head position is. In fact, as you keep working, your head position might change just according to what feels comfortable to you. That's it, good. Now also, if you're particularly sore or if your neck is particularly achy, what you might find is, oh, there's a spot right there that feels so good. You might want to just stay there and just relax into it. And I mean, you might want to spend at least a minute just until you feel that you've really absorbed the benefit of just relaxing into that very beautiful, gentle, supportive pressure. Lovely, good. So that was a spot for me that seems to work today, and then you can just keep going. And again, that is a fairly strong one, so I put that in the fairly strong category, and again that may create, because it creates more range of movement, you might unearth some problems that you weren't aware of. So again, we'll look at how to fix that at the end of the video. Now, the other one we want to do is to help improve our side-to-side rotation of the neck. And what we're looking at here is, if we're turning this way, we want to keep this shoulder pinned back so that as we're turning the head, we're not taking the shoulder with us, because it's not really a very pure neck turn. So we want to keep this shoulder pinned back. And so we're going to start off turning the neck only until we hit some resistance, and it's important not to go further than that. Now, what we can do is we can use our fingers just to the right hand side of our neck, the cervical spine. We can just start brushing up with the tips of our fingers like this, and just trying to coax that neck to come round further. That's it, good. And for me, that works very nicely. It doesn't work as obviously for all people, so don't expect necessarily an immediate result. So you might have to do this a few times before you get the feel of it. So let's take the neck the other way, and again I'm starting to resist there, so I'll pin this shoulder back and just start to stroke up into these muscles here, and that really soothes things off. And I'm just searching with my fingers for tight tissue, anywhere between the cervical spine and all the way round here to the trapezius muscles here. And you may even find some muscles in here that you want to work into. Lovely, good. And before you know it, it's quite easy to turn your head a fair bit further around. So now, although that last exercise is a quite gentle one, unless you find some really tight sore bits that you want to dig in a bit harder to, it's a very strong one in terms of how much range of movement, extra range of movement it can give you, which when you come to move your neck and shoulders, you may discover again, whoa, something doesn't feel right. So for all these exercises up till now, just finish them off if you feel any problems with your sponge squeezing one that we did earlier on. So just gently squeezing and moving the neck around, and particularly working into those three, the lower, the middle and the upper positions. And then wiping off, and sometimes even after wiping off we may feel that things are still jamming in there. Just experiment with some different ways of wiping off. Just wiping off. And some people also use the technique of plucking like this, like plucking out, which it looks very simple and ineffective, but it can be extremely effective. Now, we're going to quickly run through some ones that are very strong. They're the strongest ones that I've discovered by accident one day, just by slightly changing the position of my neck and realizing the extra intensity of engaging really deep muscles in the neck. It was quite accidental, and I found that it was these exercises are very effective for connecting the neck into the lower sections of the spine. So let's just quickly look at those. Now, you can do these in any position, in any exercise involving a rotation of the neck, but I'll show you some nice easy ones where you can get really good leverage into them. So the first position is in an all fours position. So you may want to put a spongy mat under your knees if you need it. So what we're going to do first of all is try and lift the tailbone and press back the back of the head. So pressing the head back tends to help lift the tailbone up. And what we're going to do is push diagonally through, say, my right hand, which is this hand, and out in the opposite direction with my left knee, trying to stretch that carpet apart by that oppositional diagonal pressure through those two extremities. And at the same time, we're going to push the head back. And because that's a back extension movement, we're going to breathe in to do that. So breathing in, pushing the head back, tail up. And it varies from person to person, but certainly for me, that starts to engage muscles in my lower back. For other people, it will probably engage muscles more in the upper back and sometimes in the shoulder. So it doesn't matter, there is no wrong or right, it just depends on the makeup of your own body. So let's try that to either side. So pushing off diagonally through left hand and right knee, pressing the head back, and because it's a back extension, we breathe in as we do it. That's lovely. So let's add in a neck rotation, and we're going to rotate in the direction of the hand that we're leaning into. And remember, we said we wanted to push the head back. So let's keep pushing the head back as we rotate. And let's think of that rotation coming from the push-off that we're getting from that knee, pushing out, away, in the opposite direction to the neck, so we're driving it from the knee. So if you get that combination right, pushing the head back, getting the leverage from the knee and breathing in, you should start to feel quite an intense engagement of muscles that you may not have felt much at all ever. It's quite a strong engagement for you. And it's a very, very deeply connecting engagement of your neck to your spine and down into your whole body. So let's change the line of connection. So we've been using this diagonal line here. Now we don't have to use that. We can even get that connection to the neck through this knee. So we can push this knee away from that hand. And as long as we're getting that rotation by levering, I'm getting the most leverage through this knee, not through the hand, but you can get it through the hand. If you really lean into that hand, you can do it. I'm getting more leverage through the knee, and I'm breathing in because it's a back extension. So you can just pick whatever line of connection you want through your body. You can favour this hand if you want to. And you can press the floor apart with this knee and this hand if you want to. It's a little bit more difficult, but it's good to play with connecting one part of your body in as many ways through to as many other parts of your body as you can. So I've given you the easiest one, diagonal line this way, and turning the head towards the hand. That's the easiest one, and obviously you can do that to both sides. Pressing the head back, breathing in, and finding a leverage point into the floor. That's it, lovely. So the next position, we want to go from rotating neck in an extended back position to in a flexed position. So the easiest way that I've found to do this is to be in a kneeling position, and by all means put some pillows under here if you need them, and if your feet are cramping, pack under here with pillows or a folded up blanket. And what we can do is just walk our hands around, and if you're too high, just bring your hands onto something that they can connect to. And this time we're going to drop our head and going to find some leverage points for this movement. So I'm going to pick this knee that I'm rotating away from. And because my head is down and my spine is flexed, that corresponds more to the out breath. So let's push our head down. We're going to use the breath, which in this case is the out breath. We're going to rotate that neck and get the leverage from I'm using my knee. Now again, you can, just by shifting the emphasis of what part of your body is leaning into the floor, you can pick the line of connection. My neck at the moment is connecting to that knee. Let's try and connect it more into this hand. So I'm going to put more emphasis of leaning into this hand. And as long as I keep my head down, I breathe out, and I choose my leverage point, I start to work those really deep muscles. I can lean into this knee. There's no reason I can't lean to, and that's giving me today a beautiful, beautiful, it's shifted the position in my neck, which is really good. It's accessing different parts of my neck now. So this knee, breathing out, head down. This knee, breathing out, neck down. This hand, breathing out, neck down. This hand's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can always experiment with that. So again, I would put that in the category of a neck exercise that is really quite rigorous. So I'd recommend, after moving your neck around, shoulders, neck, wrists, fingers, and getting your pelvis moving and getting even your ankles moving, to try and integrate that through. I'd really recommend our beautiful soothing sponge squeezing exercise to finish off. And again, particularly what that most affects is the lower section of my neck. So I'm going to favour holding that part while I move my neck around. So just try those exercises out and compare particularly those last ones with the depth of sensation that you've been getting with your other exercises. And it's so important. Necks are something that affect our whole body, because if your neck is out of place, it's going to flow through to the rest of your body. If I have my neck dropped, if I'm a down-looking person when I walk, it's going to collapse things in, it's going to collapse my pelvis. It's going to influence the main arches of my feet. It's going to tend to even collapse your arches if you have a head down position. So it's important to feel that the neck knows its place in relation to the rest of the body. It feels connected, it feels solidly supported and connected to the rest of the body, and connected all the way down to the ground, which all those last exercises were doing, because they were always levering some part of our body into the floor to get that neck movement. That's how we connect our necks, not just to our body, but down into the ground itself. So just as the importance of what we do with our feet, standing on our spiky balls, making sure that our feet are not bound up with tension and poor circulation. The feet affect the body from the ground up, our necks affect our body from the top down.